Welcome to the City Club of Portland, Oregon's premier citizens forum. We're delighted you're with us today. I'm Don Williams, president of City Club. Today our program is entitled Thinking Outside the Booth, Farmers Markets, a Public Market, and Creating More Local Food Choices. Our panel today includes Scott Dolich, Vice Chair of the Portland Farmers Market, Ron Paul, Consulting Director of the Portland Public Market, and Ron is also a member of the City Club Board of Governors. The panel will be moderated by Scott Exo, who is Executive Director of the Portland Food Alliance. For the benefit of our radio and television audiences, please turn off your cell phones, your Blackberries, and other electronic devices. First, a few announcements. Next week's Friday Forum will be entitled Creating an Age-Friendly City. Our speakers will be Margaret Neal, Director of the Portland State University Institute on Aging, and Bill Novelli, National President of AARP. In about 4 hours, City Club will provide a grand finale to the September Fall Harvest by hosting an open house at City Club Commons featuring local food and wine. The event is from 4:30 to 6. It's free, open to the public, and no RSVP is required. Now, it's also a great opportunity to say farewell and thank you to our wonderful Executive Director, Wendy Rodmacher-Willis, whose last day at City Club is today. Wendy, I might add, all of you here are interested in civic engagement. And for the last 4 years, City Club has been fortunate to have an executive director who's passionate about this concept. Wendy has ably articulated the City Club mission on countless occasions to many groups, and she also helped inspire a revitalization of City Club, which is not only going to help our organization, but the community for years to come. Those of you who saw her farewell message in this week's bulletin or heard her annual address, or her address at our annual meeting, know that she's a class act. Now, since Wendy's only going to be a few blocks away from here in her new job at Portland State University for Oregon Solutions, we're confident that we're going to see her as a regular at Friday Forums and also City Club activities. In fact, I'm going to ask today for a public commitment that she'll volunteer for a City Club research report next year. Please join me in thanking her for her inspired service. In keeping with the interest and excitement created by our September focus on food and agriculture, we're going to be hosting an art exhibit at the City Club Commons through November 30th. It's entitled Sustaining Change on the American Farm, an artist-farmer exchange. The show consists of 13 reproductions of mass media, and they depict the realities of working on a small farm in the 21st century. This exhibit is on loan from the Washington State Historical Society. Join me in welcoming a new member to City Club today. Her name is Ellen Theodorson. She's an attorney at Stoll Reeves LLP. Ellen, you stand up. City Club would also like to extend a warm welcome to students from Fred Leeson's class at Concordia University. In fact, they're going to be writing a paper on today's program. Some of the students that are in the audience today, others will be listening to the rebroadcast on Oregon Public Broadcasting, and some will view it on television through Portland Community Media Channel 30. We're also pleased to have a table right down here of students from De La Salle North Catholic High School and the director of their internship program, Mike Jacobson. It provides students with college prep education, but also offers a professional internship program to help them defray the cost of their education. And the De La Salle internship promotes self-sufficiency, it provides career training, personal mentoring, and most importantly, paid employment. Join me in welcoming them. We're also fortunate to have terrific corporate sponsors for this program. And this quarter's sponsors are Girding Edelin Development and the law firm of Baron Liebman LLP. Thank you. Jim Zarin is the president-elect of City Club. He's also the board member responsible for coordinating our annual fund drive. This campaign is absolutely critical to ensure the continuation of City Club research and activities. He's going to tell us how we can all get involved.
Thanks, Don. Whenever Don starts these Friday programs with his welcome to Oregon's premier public affairs organization, civic forum, whatever words they use, I always feel great about that because I know Don deeply believes it, and I do too, and I think people in this room do as well. This really is a unique organization. It has been for 91 years. We're in our 92nd year now. And there's really no place else where we have a forum like this with these kinds of programs. As you know, we have speakers of on all kinds of topics and lots of panels and political debates, state of the state, state of the union, state of the city, almost everything you can imagine at these programs. So they're a unique forum. As those of you who come and listen and watch, you also know that at these forums from time to time we have research reports on long-term studies and our ballot measure committees who also have reports that are presented and debated and acted upon here. There isn't really another organization that does that kind of research, unbiased. There's a strict conflict of interest procedure for screening members of our committees. There's no hidden agendas. We conclude what we conclude, and it's very unique. There's no other organization quite like it in the state. And then this organization, I think, unlike almost any other in the state, provides a place where people can get engaged in the civic issues, public issues, get some experience, get some background and training in what it's like to be effectively involved in civic discourse in Oregon. So this really is a unique organization. As many of you know, we have the Awareness and Advocacy Committee. We have the Citizen Salons in the summer. We have the New Leaders Council, Agora. There's just many different ways in which our programs facilitate people getting involved. So how do we make this all happen? Well, of course, we have an annual budget. And one of the things I want to make sure you understand, because it's very important, is that out of the City Club's operating budget each year, only 40% of that amount is paid by dues. And so we have to make up the remaining 60% each year in order to keep this organization what it is and keep us on the move. And the way we do that, raise that additional 60% in major part is through an annual fund drive, which we call the annual fund effort. And we're doing that again this fall. Now, last year in the annual fund, we raised $110,000, which was fabulous, and that was due to the leadership of Don and his predecessor, Susan Hammer, and other people that worked hard on that, on our staff, et cetera. We want to duplicate that again this year and hopefully even do better than that. In fact, I'm hoping we can reach $150,000 this year. And let me tell you why I think that's doable. Of the $110,000 that we raised last year as an organization, 350 people made those contributions. That's out of a membership of in excess of 1,500 people. So if you do the math, if the other 1,150 people gave on average of, say, $25, which wouldn't break the bank for most of us, we could raise almost another $20,000 just by getting everybody to participate. Don mentioned that these programs are broadcast on OPB. Our OPB friends have taught us over and over again that if everybody just does a little bit, it'll help the organization. So our board of directors have all made pledges and made contributions to the annual fund. They're anywhere from $100 to $5,000. We would ask that everybody that's a member of City Club do what they can, and we'll all benefit. You're going to be getting a letter in the next week or two inviting you and encouraging you to contribute to the annual fund. You can also contribute on our club's website, which is www.pdxcityclub.org. And that's also true. I want to emphasize for anybody that's in the room or listening that's not a member of City Club, we certainly encourage people to support the organization if you believe in what we are and what we're doing. And finally, as you consider whether or not to contribute to the annual fund, please take some tax consequences into consideration. All contributions to the annual fund are 100% deductible on your state and Oregon income taxes. Contributions to the annual fund qualify for contributions to the Oregon Cultural Trust Program, so that if you make a contribution to the City Club, you can make an equal contribution to the Oregon Cultural Trust, and that second contribution is dollar for dollar deductible as a credit on your Oregon income taxes. That's a very good way to contribute to the cultural infrastructure of our state. If you're 70 and a half or older, you can make a direct transfer from your IRA into an organization like the City Club's annual fund with no tax consequences. And finally, due to the infamous kicker program that we have in this state, for whatever its unique qualities, it will result in everybody in this room and everybody that's listening that has Oregon tax liability getting a check from state government in the amount of approximately 19% of your Oregon tax liability. So when you get that check, or in anticipation of that check, you might think about your value that you apply to City Club and consider sharing it or sending all of it to our organization. If we all do our part, we can continue to be the unique, venerable, and very important Portland and regional and Oregon institution that we have been, and now we're in our 92nd year. So help us keep it going. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. It's an important message. Last week, Congressman Earl Blumenauer spoke to the City Club about the 2007 federal farm bill. He complimented us for scheduling today's topic because of the importance and scope of the topic. Food and how it's produced, marketed and distributed is a growing concern, literally. It has implications ranging from land use planning to healthcare to transportation policy. The choices we make on food affect both our families and our community. Today's panel will talk about the renaissance of the farmers market, public markets, and how they create vital economic and cultural links between rural and urban communities. And they will also address our growing national obsession with food. A quote from Adam Scott, author of the Monkey Chow Diaries in 2006, I think can give us a little bit perspective on this topic. It's amazing how pervasive food is. Every second commercial is about food. Every second TV episode takes place around a meal. In a city, you can't go 10 feet without seeing or smelling a restaurant. There are billboards that are 20 feet high with hamburgers. I'm acutely aware of food. Its omnipresence is astounding. Today's panel is well qualified to address this topic. Our moderator is Scott Exo, the Executive Director of the Food Alliance. It's a Portland-based nonprofit that works to create market incentives for sustainable agriculture. Now, Scott has over 17 years of nonprofit and program experience. Before he came to the Food Alliance, he was the Leadership Director for 1,000 Friends of Oregon. He's also managed rural development and study abroad programs in Asia and Africa. Attended graduate school at the University of Hawaii and has dual master's degrees in geography and urban and rural planning. Might add, Scott was scheduled yesterday to climb Mount St. Helens, and I think he agreed to let us know whether he reached the summit today as one of his first items. Now, he's going to introduce his other panel members, but before he does, I just want to make one comment about my fellow City Club board member, Ron Paul. We're just delighted today that notwithstanding his extensive travel and speaking schedule, that he agreed to speak today. In fact, I've been amazed at the coverage he's been getting in the press. The latest was yesterday in the Oregonian about the public market, but he's even gone national. In fact, I brought two examples. New campaign, Ron Paul supporters are everywhere. Ron Paul, 2008, Hope for America. Well, for those of you who are old enough to remember Gilda Radner on Saturday Night Live, never mind.
Thank you and welcome. I'm pleased to report that I did reach the rim of Mount St. Helens. I recommend that long slog to all of you. It's spectacular when you reach the rim. The part I'm really excited about is the dinner we had at the Campers Bivouac the night before. We had pasta with salsa romano and a bottle of Irie Pinot Gris and some nice Oregon tuna to finish it off. We didn't get up as early as we thought we would. When I drafted the description for this event, I talked about our national and even local obsession with food. And Don has already mentioned a couple of examples of that, and I want to mention just a few others. Best-selling books like Fast Food Nation and Omnivore's Dilemma and a variety of food scares in the United States are causing us to re-examine our food choices. Last year, Time magazine had a front-page story entitled "Local versus Organic." Now, for personal and professional reasons, I have problems with that dichotomy, but the fact that it was a cover story on a national magazine, I think, underscores the obsession itself in our growing civic dialogue about our food choices. We're realizing that access to healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food is key to addressing the growing obesity epidemic. Portland and Multnomah County were among the first in the nation to create a food policy council, on which I have the pleasure of serving, that addresses local food issues and advises local elected officials on issues ranging from land use to community gardens and food access for underserved neighborhoods. We have a magazine called Edible Portland. We've known for years that lots of people are moving to this city because of our quality of life. But apparently, our city is now good enough to eat. And last week, we had our very own Earl Blumenauer, an urban congressman, talking about the Farm Bill. What's up with that? So in many respects, our growing food obsession is a very good thing. We're learning, as the agrarian writer and philosopher Wendell Berry said, that eating is indeed an agricultural act. We are rediscovering the bounty of foods that are or can be grown close to us. And this deliberate attention to the origins of our food helps connect people, and especially urban people, to the uniqueness of our region, gives us a greater appreciation of the crucial role that farmers and ranchers play in land stewardship, and expands the range of opportunities for beginning as well as seasoned farmers. This last point is very important. We city folk need to remember that this new food obsession isn't just about improving our own quality of life. It's also about expanding options and improving livelihoods for the rural communities where a growing share of our food originates. These communities and agricultural enterprises that are increasingly at a disadvantage in global commodity markets, where competition is based largely on price. If we value both the beauty and the bounty of well-managed working landscapes in our region, we must ensure that we reward farmers and ranchers accordingly. Before coming this morning, I listened briefly to the recording of the City Club event almost a year ago, called Oregon's Omnivore's Dilemma, in which my former colleague Deborah Kane and her guests talked to you about the rewards and challenges of, one, becoming more informed and involved in the origins of our food, and two, bringing more local and regionally grown foods into our schools, restaurants, and grocery stores. Today, we're extending this dialogue about expanded access to local and regional foods to venues that are in many ways the face of the local food movement in this country. And where it's all local all the time, or at least until winter comes. I'm talking, of course, about farmers markets and an old concept that some are working very hard to bring back to Portland, a year-round public market. Before I introduce our guests, I want to set the context just a little bit more by sharing a few statistics that I think underscore the growing interest in local foods. Nationally, more than 2,000 farmers markets have opened since the mid-1990s. Their numbers have grown since 1994 from 1,700 markets to over 4,000 markets in 2006. and with an 18% increase just in the 2004-2006 period alone. The Portland region now has a whopping 31 farmers markets from Rainier to Estacada, with about 80 markets statewide. Grocers, partly in response to this trend, and some of whom who are leading this trend, are now labeling products that are locally grown. Last Friday, I checked in with my friend Lisa Sedlar, one of last year's panelists for the Omnivore's Dilemma discussion, and she told me that New Seasons Market is now sourcing up to a third of their store's products in their home region of Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. That's a huge achievement in the retail food industry. And yet there are challenges for farmers markets, just as there have been challenges on the long road to trying to bring a public market back to Portland. On the farmers market side, Larry Lev, a marketing economist at OSU's Department of Ag and Resource Economics, just this summer completed a 7-year study on the performance of Oregon farmers markets and found that in that 7-year period, 62 markets opened and 32 closed, for a statewide gain of 30. Part of the challenge for both public and farmers markets lies in the fact that they exist for multiple purposes, both commercial and public. As such, they need to secure and maintain support and participation from multiple quarters, both public and private. In just one tiny example of the challenges that these entities face, I'll tell you a little story about the Hollywood Farmers Market, which was started by a friend and colleague, Suzanne Briggs. Suzanne told me about how when the market got started, they secured permission to use the parking lot of the bank in Hollywood. The bank wasn't open on Saturday, they didn't need the space, and the business was publicly minded. Once the market grew and began to succeed, so many people were coming into the Hollywood business district that the bank decided to open on Saturdays, thereby displacing the market. Here today to talk about the joys and challenges of operating these kinds of markets are two gentlemen who share a bona fide food obsession of the best kind. To my left is Chef Scott Dolich. Scott is at the helm of one of the Northwest's most acclaimed restaurants, Park Kitchen, located here in Portland's Pearl District. At a very young age of 39, Scott is already a highly respected chef, has been named one of the country's best new chefs in 2004 by Food and Wine magazine, and was nominated in 2007 for the James Beard Award. Scott earned his degree at the Culinary Institute of America in New York, and then spent a decade honing his skills at well-known Pacific Northwest restaurants like Wildwood and Higgins, where he cultivated his appreciation for local and seasonal foods. In 2003, Scott's own vision of a neighborhood restaurant catering around the region's local bounty came to fruition with the opening of Park Kitchen. The underlying theme at Park Kitchen, says Scott, has always been about respecting the integrity of our ingredients. Scott joined the board of the Portland Farmers Markets in 2004 and was named vice president in 2006. When he joined the board, the Portland Farmers Market had already become an icon of Portland's local food movement. During his tenure on the board, the market has helped make a commitment to leverage its success to the greatest benefit of small local farms. Scott has also been a member of the Portland chapter of the Chefs Collaborative since 1999 and an active participant in Growing Gardens, Portland Public Schools Abernathy Scratch Kitchen, Plate and Pitchfork, and the Salud wine auctions. To my right, a man that probably needs little introduction to many of you, is Ron Paul. For over 2 decades as a chef and restaurateur, the artistry and sustainability of food has defined Ron's professional identity. While some would have argued in the late 70s that food was not a bona fide art form, that public perception has now shifted to acknowledge the merits of that claim, as well as fully recognizing the role culinary artistry plays in the region's economy and ecology. In the public sphere, Ron's work with the city of Portland engaged him at the intersection of politics and policy. He was chief of staff to Commissioner Charlie Hales, where he convened a diverse group that began the effort to develop a year-round food-focused public market that would reconnect with Portland's long tradition of public markets. He has also participated in shaping the city's art policies and funding decisions In that role, he coordinated the city's lobbying for the creation of the Oregon Public Trust and now serves as the vice chair of the Oregon Arts Commission. In the city's Office of Planning and then in the Office of Sustainable Development for 3 years, he continued to advocate for the public market as well as citywide arts and cultural planning. Now, as a private consultant and self-described civic entrepreneur, he continues his efforts to create a public market for Portland. His bias is for food systems and cultural planning to advance to the same level that other environmental planning has already achieved, an effort he calls Habitat for Urbanity. Please join me in welcoming our guest today. So, gentlemen, you're each involved with markets with similar names but very distinct concepts related to bringing local and regional foods to Portland. I'm going to ask each of you to describe the market you're involved in. And Scott, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about the evolution of the Portland Farmers Market, its origins, and how it's evolved over the years.
Thank you, Scott. Portland Farmers Market is much more than its fabulous flagship market on Saturdays behind PSU. Portland Farmers Market is 4 distinct markets in 4 different inner-city sites on 3 different days of the week. We run 9 months out of the year, April through December, serving upwards of 25,000 shoppers per week. We are a crucially important direct sales opportunity for over 250 vendors with deep roots in Oregon and Washington, including farms, nurseries, bakeries, meat and seafood providers, cheesemakers, restaurants, and specialty food providers. We are a vibrant gathering place where friends and neighbors meet and shop. We're an important economic and cultural bridge between Portland and rural sections of Oregon. We are a resource for learning about food, agriculture, and nutrition. Last but not least, we're a showcase for Northwest agriculture. Portland Farmers Market was founded in 1992 by Craig Mosbach and Ted Snyder, who reportedly first had the idea to bring the best of the country to the heart of the city after a strenuous game of tennis. The original market at Albers Mill had only 13 vendors. By 2007, Portland Farmers Market had grown to 4 weekly markets with vendor sales in excess of $5 million per year. Portland Farmers Market is a financially stable 501c6 operated by a paid staff of 6 and governed by an all-volunteer board. The organization is funded through 90% vendors' fees, and the remainder is through an annual fundraising dinner and through private sponsors. Portland Farmers Market receives no city, state, or federal funding whatsoever. The goals in 1992 were the same as the goals are today: to support our region's farms by creating venues where local farms can connect directly with Portland consumers, helping to build communities in an urban setting and strengthening urban-rural bonds, and educating the general public on the social, cultural, and economic benefits of eating locally produced food. Portland Farmers Market's stated vision is to maximize the local consumption of local foods through leadership in the Farm Direct movement. B, to create educational programs to strengthen consumer support for local agriculture, and to encourage additional distribution channels for Farm Direct products. Through programs like the Eat Local campaign, Portland Farmers Market has succeeded in raising public awareness far beyond the scope of its 4 markets on why it is important that we should have a healthy local food economy. I believe that I'm preaching to the choir this afternoon by saying that we believe it's self-evident that local food dollars should be spent locally. We know that our local food economy is important because local production is good economically, local food production is good culturally by providing a sense of place, local food is good environmentally in that it minimizes the cost of transportation. And most importantly, coming from my 17 years as a chef, I know empirically that local food tastes better. Portland Farmers Market is honored to be asked to contribute to the larger discussion of how do we grow our local food economy. We believe that this is absolutely this is the most important question It's the overriding question that we collectively must answer if we are dedicated to sustainable agriculture in the big sense. We've been very busy doing our part over the past 15 years by providing an exceptionally stable, cost-effective direct sales opportunity for local food producers. Direct marketing is a small but growing sector of the Oregon agriculture. Uniquely within that agricultural sector, it is the only one attracting new farmers. We realize that this is not the only avenue to support local agriculture. CSAs, roadside stands, public markets, grocery stores, and municipal entities are all other possible points of sale on the continuum of sales opportunities. There have been many organizations that have helped inspire the local food movement, including the Chefs Collaborative, Slow Food USA, EcoTrust, and the support of the Oregonians' Food Day editors and writers. Unfortunately, having all of these constituencies represented here today would be well beyond the scope of what we could do in an hour. But it is important to recognize that the single most important constituency in this discussion is not up here today. That's the local farmers. If we're to have a truly representative discussion, their input is vital. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our new executive director, Mary Do Radosevich. She just joined, she was just elected as the ED for the Portland Farmers Market a few weeks ago, and we're very, very happy to have her on board. I truly believe that she is the right person at the right time for the Portland Farmers Market. And that brings me to my next point, in that we feel that there is one person here with us today without whom this discussion would probably not be taking place, and that is Diane Stefani Ruff. Diane's been she's the outgoing ED for the Portland Farmers Market. For 9 years, she's been the guiding light and a tireless proponent of Portland Farmers Market and for all local farmers and markets. She's done a great deal to make Portland the culinary destination that it is today. We owe you a huge debt of gratitude, Diane. Please join me in recognizing September 29th, 2007, that's tomorrow, as a day of appreciation for Diane Stefani Ruff in Portland, and encourage all citizens to observe this day and visit their neighborhood farmers market. That's from Mayor Tom Potter. Thank you, Diane. We hope to see everybody here at the farmers market tomorrow to say goodbye to Diane. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. And Diane, I've had the pleasure of serving with Diane on the Food Policy Council, and she's been a great addition to that body as well. Ron, you've been working on bringing a public market back to Portland because I think, as some of us understand, that's a historical concept that is deep in Portland's roots. Tell us a little bit about your vision and the vision of your board of directors for a public market in Portland. Many of us have visited the Pike Street Market in Seattle. Is that what we're talking about, or are there similarities or differences?
Probably more differences than similarities. But let's talk first about two fundamental elements, history and geography. History has treated Portland extremely well in terms of the quality and quantity of public markets going back to the city's founding in the mid-1800s. So everywhere from the New Market and Theater building along Ankeny Square to what is now Produce Row. Albina had its own market, and so did the garage where Keller Auditorium currently is, and as was recently pointed out, that's on Market Street. And sometimes we just need to pay attention to what our street names are because they can teach us a lot. So Portland grew from, picture Yamhill between 1st and 5th with over 200 merchants every day lining the street with permanent stalls. In the early 30s, Portland built the largest public market in North America along the seawall between the Morrison and Hawthorne bridges. It, unfortunately, due to backroom city hall land scheming, closed in 1941. And since then, Portland just hasn't had a true public market. But you know, our geography is the same now as it was then. And Scott has done a great job of describing the kinds of foods that are immediately local and that we can enrich ourselves by purchasing and consuming. So the public market will showcase those local products, but all by independently owned small merchants, no chains, no franchises. If Starbucks wants to serve coffee, they're welcome to do it a block or so away. But within the public market, it would be all locally based organizations selling and showcasing local foods, but also going beyond that. And we want to be able to provide convenient one-stop shopping for the choicest ingredients, not only locally, but from throughout the world. So let me use a quick example. Knowing that both Scotts are great chefs, I had the privilege of dining at Park Kitchen last night, and Scott had instructed the staff to keep my glass over full, hoping that I would fail to make it here today. But let's talk about seafood. We have some of the best seafood in North America immediately available, and both Scotts can do a handsome job in the kitchen cooking it. But you know, often they'll reach for a lemon or lime or orange for that last accent. And even with global warming, we're not going to have a citrus crop in the Willamette Valley anytime soon. So the difference is you can get the same great fish at either a public market or a farmer's market. But when you go to buy that citrus that you can at the public market, you're going to know where it's from, how it was grown, and how far it has traveled to reach you. And so if you broaden the spectrum, some of our favorite foods, of course, coffee, chocolate, olive oil, are never going to be local, and we want to be able to encourage people buying high-quality ingredients from wherever they come in the world. At the risk of being a heretic, though, I want to talk about my support for local food, and I'm a localvore of the first rate. But instead of just looking at food miles traveled as the metric for understanding the carbon footprint of what we eat, let's also look at something that's called a life cycle analysis. And James McWilliams, in an August 6th New York Times op-ed piece, talked about lamb from New Zealand traveling to the UK and actually having a lower carbon footprint than UK lamb did, in part because the inputs in the pastures and the practices in the UK added so much more carbon expenditures to the production of the lamb. So the public market is going to be aware of life cycle analysis of all the products. We envision at some point you would have a barcode that you could read and be able to decipher all of that. Let's go beyond that to what it looks like, feels like, tastes like. Abundance. We have that abundance in the farmers market. We have a cadre of producers who are interested in expanding to full-time, year-round, 7-day-a-week operations. That's not in any way minimizing or cannibalizing from the farmers market. There are a number of people who are just literally hungry for the opportunity to expand, and we see it as part of the continuum that Scott just mentioned. One other thing is in terms of interpreting it. If we think of Pioneer Courthouse Square as the city's living room, we know that the public market is quickly going to become the city's kitchen and pantry. And you know where you want to hang out when you go to someone's house.
Thank you. Let's talk about that continuum. I have a question, perhaps a two-part question for both of you. can the obsession grow too large? Is there danger that we create too many venues for local and regional foods and they begin to compete with each other for customers and businesses? And to the extent that there is a limit, how do we anticipate that and design for it? How would we design a public market to complement and not compete with or augment what's happening in farmers markets and other venues for these kinds of foods? Scott, you want to go first?
Sure. The short answer to your question is the Portland Farmers Market is not concerned about too many markets, either public, private, or otherwise. We think that this just allows for more points of sale on different days in different areas for the local farms. We also think that a modicum of competition encourages us to continuously reevaluate how we can better serve our vendors and our customers. In respect to the public market, should we call it the James Beard public market? I won't take your thunder.
Right.
But
we will avoid some confusion, I think, and similarities of name going forward.
Absolutely. But I would say in lieu of the public market and how, if we were to design it, how would it complement the farmers market? We'd do a couple of things. First, we'd step back and we'd say what's best for the local food economy. Second, what's the most efficient way to provide stable and profitable sales opportunities? And three, what are the issues that are being addressed? And we feel strongly that the planning of the market should take into account where a concept like this fits into what's already on the ground. This will help all parties succeed. But we do feel that the evolution of the market, the public market, as an identity that's separate and distinct from the Portland Farmers Market is welcome and healthy. It may allow it to complement the availability of local foods by reaching out to new markets and in that way strengthening the local food economy as a whole.
I think without question I agree, and if you look at the percentage of food bought in the Portland metropolitan area directly from producers, it is infinitesimally small. We're probably talking about not greater than 2 or 3%, even with all the farmers markets that have grown in the last decade. If you look at Seattle with Pike Place Market, Vancouver with Granville Island Market, maybe you double that percentage to 4 or 5%. What farmers markets, public market, all the way down that continuum want to do is to look at the 95, 96% of food shoppers who aren't yet shopping local and provide more opportunities for them to do that. Coincidentally, though, you need vendors as well as shoppers. I think we're all aware of that. And the question of where are those vendors going to come from, how are they going to populate not only ongoing presence in farmers markets, but to be of the scale that they could handle easily being in a full-time year-round public market. Just right before I left to come downtown today, I received an email from a gentleman named Reed Clay. He had just read about the public market and confessed his dream of having a seafood business in a retail setting. He's a CPA and investment banker, he wrote. He, with family, fishermen, and friends, traffics in about 400,000 pounds of certifiably, sustainably harvested salmon, or caught salmon, line-caught salmon each year. He's supplying restaurants as far away as New York. He would love to have the kind of permanent facility that a public market could provide. And so I'm not worried about where the vendors are going to come from. I know that we have, as does Scott, 96% of the population who are not yet purchasing local food, and we want to give them every opportunity to be able to do that.
So if we have the customers and we presume we will have the vendors, where are the barriers? Where are the problems? You heard my story about the Hollywood Farmers Market. That's just one of the challenges that markets face in a microcosm. For the Portland Farmers Market, what kinds of public support do you need, and in what form, to grow the concept, be more successful, and by extension, the other markets that are struggling to beat the trend that Larry Lev identified in his study? What kind of public support is needed? And likewise for the public farmers market, which remains yet a concept, what kind of public support are you going to be asking for and needing for that to become a reality?
This could go on for a long time. As far as the Portland Farmers Market or farmers market's concerned, one of the most effective ways that the public sector could strengthen the existing and emerging markets would be to realize that access to public space is the prime asset for most farmers markets. The city could also get involved in planning by including public spaces that accommodate farmers markets. There could be public investment. They could provide appropriate public space for farmers markets at low or no cost. We feel that the city should develop a fairly standard set of criteria that can be applied across the board when planning where funds should be allocated. Education is another way that the city could become involved. Also partnerships. We feel strongly that we should be able to develop government and nonprofit partnerships to support emerging farmers based on what's happening nationally and internationally on food safety. That would be in the form of maybe tax credits for farms growing food in the local market.
Ron?
I mentioned paying attention to names when I mentioned Market Street. Public market says public market because it's doing something that the private sector cannot do in your traditional commercial setting. It's providing the lower barriers of entry for the true complexion of local vendors to have a place to showcase their goods. So from the taquerias from St. John's or the Russian merchants from Southeast Foster to the Vietnamese bakers on Sandy, there's seldom an opportunity to have a central city location that has reasonable rents and an inviting but vibrant atmosphere that would allow them the economic security of having their own business on a permanent basis. The public's role in creating that is helping the market open debt-free. So the market would be run by a private nonprofit. The official name is the Historic Portland Public Market Foundation. On Wednesday, the board of the foundation voted unanimously to pursue naming the market in honor of James Beard, Portland's culinary favorite son. And we hope that as the market would open, it would be called the James Beard Public Market. To help celebrate that with us, we have in the audience Diane Harris Brown from the James Beard Foundation in New York, who is here for a weekend of Taste America events, and we want to applaud that connection with Beard moving from Portland to New York, and now we're bringing him back to Portland. The economics of it, though, are important. Like the farmers' markets, the public market needs to run as a business. The vendors will pay rent. Those rents go to cover all of the operating costs. But in terms of the difference between a public and a private market, there is no debt service and there are no private shareholders who derive any financial benefit. All of the revenue paid by the merchants as rent go towards the maintenance and operations of the market.
Thanks. Did you want to add something else, Scott?
I did. There has been some positive steps taken by the city already. There's been a feasibility study and master plan that's been initiated by PDC and Commissioner Saltzman's office, which will hopefully begin the process of planning for future farmers markets. Portland Farmers Market does believe that a comprehensive analysis could help guide new markets and ensure that there are new producers coming into the market, which is we believe is very, very important. And we do look forward to this being an open and productive process.
Thank you. So Scott, how do you imagine the farmers market will have to grow and adapt over the next 5 years to continue to be successful?
Well, there are a couple of points that we should need to address within the next 5 years. The first would be that we think that the farmers market should be a tiny bit more aggressive in asking for public and private collaboration to achieve its goals. Secondly, we think that Portland Farmers Market should seek to attain a more permanent solution to its space issues. This means that it must collaborate more closely with the City of Portland. More on the ground stuff, we need to keep our costs down and our quality up, which keeping our quality up, it hasn't really been a problem. We do need to keep abreast of our customers' needs, as every business does. We need to be able to translate those to our vendors. And as I said before, we need to encourage more small farmers to sell their produce at local markets directly.
Here's a final question for you both. Why is Portland a better place for the existence of the farmers market, and why will it be a better place for the existence of the public market? Want to go first?
If Bill Clinton were up here, he'd say it's the food, stupid. If we stole from Kink Radio their tagline, true to the food, and even looking at something that hasn't been mentioned yet, but is just blockbusting news, and that was the front page of the dining section of this week's New York Times on Wednesday, had an over-the-top article on food in Portland. Over the top. It was giddy. As Scott mentioned in my introduction, there have been just a cumulative generation now of celebrating local foods, the relationship to the local wine, beer, and now spirit industry, and it really is all about the food. And just as one small way of interpreting that, if you think of Cajun cuisine or Tex-Mex or even California cuisine, you think of a specific type of cooking and style. If you think of Pacific Northwest, it's not about the style of cooking, it's about showcasing the ingredients. So if Michelangelo in Sculpting the Pietà was asked, you know, how did you come up with such a dramatic form? And he said, the figure was in the stone, I just chipped away the excess. And it's the same with the food. The flavor is in it. And as both Scotts know, and as all of you know who shop and eat from the local bounty, the flavor is here. We're just chipping away the excess and making it available to more people.
Thank you. Scott?
The only thing that I would really add to Ron's statement, and I absolutely agree with what he's said, is this has become of more concern recently. We're talking about food safety, and what better way to assure that the quality of the food that you eat is great than to shake hands with a person who's growing it and talk to them every week or every day. We feel that these local markets are the solution to that problem, and that should be encouraged, and that's one of the things that a public market and Portland farmers markets can easily do in a very public and a very joyous way.
Putting a face on the food.
Putting a face on the food.
Thank you. We have time for questions, I think.
Thank you, panel. We also want to acknowledge and thank the Portland Farmers Market, who's donating food for our Final Friday event at the City Club Commons today, so come and taste the bounty. Asking questions is a privilege of City Club members. Please keep your question to 30 seconds or less. We're a little bit limited today, but our first question will be asked by board host Jim Zarin, who's president-elect. He's a partner at Stoll Reeves.
I want to follow up on a comment that was made by Scott in the middle about Suzanne Briggs and the Hollywood Farmers Market. I happen to have been working with Suzanne and a group of about 10 people over the course of a year to year and a half, where we tried to get Metro to put in its regional green spaces program a piece for securing sites for farmers market, not only for all these benefits, but for the idea that if they would help make farmers economically successful around the urban growth boundary, it creates a different economic situation for expansion of the urban growth boundary, and it would provide centers in all these community centers that in both our city and our cities, plural, and our regional plans, we say we want to develop. As we all know, there's something magical that happens when you have a farmer's market in the center of an urban place. Everybody seems to agree with this. We couldn't get it in the Metro Bond Levy. We've talked to the Portland Planning Commission. We talked to the planning director. We've talked to the parks director. Everybody seems to say yes, but where's the money? What would we have to do to get the political leadership, meaning the mayor, the city council, Metro Council, to agree that we need to put hard dollars into the infrastructure of land so there's permanent sites for these things? What do we have to do politically to get this done at the highest political level?
As food becomes a more central political issue in our lives, the message will increase. It's not an easy step. But I would even go beyond looking at the value of rural farmland in adjacency to the urban growth boundary and talk about the opportunities for urban agriculture within the urban growth boundary. And everything from productive eco-roofs to a project that the city undertook called the Diggable City that inventoried available publicly owned land that could be cultivated under water towers, fallow parts of parks, that those are some of the things that we also need to be looking at in terms of improving food security. The only way that it's going to get center stage is if this country has a major food security scare. And we realize that we have a 2 or 3 day supply of food for our entire region based on how we're currently doing things. I'm not predicting, I'm not saying that that's the only way, but it's unfortunate that that's how our culture would respond.
Well, Portland Farmers Market has been wrestling with this concept for quite some time on how to approach the city to get more money, and we feel that the simpler the solution, the better, to be able to, for us, for farmers markets, to be able to take it step by step and to ask the city simply for looking at the farmers market or for public markets as assets to the city, and to give us a break on rents and leases would certainly be a great first step for us, without wanting to go to the moon right on the first bat.
I would just say that I had the opportunity to read the document that outlines the concept you're describing, and I think it's brilliant. I've taken every opportunity to bend Earl Blumenauer's ear about it, a lot of other elected officials about it, and everybody's excited about the concept, but it never quite gets traction. It appeals to me as someone trained in urban planning about the public concepts of that spark that farmers markets can create and the civic activity that could surround them. It's going to take leadership from some key individuals in the levers of power to embrace that. So some of my fellow members of the Food Policy Council, who are supposed to advise local electeds on some of these issues, I guess I challenge all of us in that body to take greater notice of that piece of work and be advocates for it. But we're going to need some elected official support of that concept and some dollars. But I think it has great potential.
Eva Schweber, City Club member. This is a question for Ron Paul, although all three of you have touched on this. So I'm a member of a CSA. I have been for years. They were originally, they're certified organ tilth, but with organic standards being nationalized, the process is too expensive. But because there's a face on our food. We know the family. We've seen their kids raised. They have full transparency. We can go to the farm whenever we want. The certification isn't necessary because we know their practices haven't changed. But Ron, you were talking about when you're doing it, having the public market serve as that intermediary. How do you propose creating a standard that is not prohibitively expensive to food producers, but creates that transparency and accountability without achieving that balance, without the purchasers having that direct face necessarily with the producer?
Instead of transparency, I would refer to it as authenticity, Eva, and that the ability to deal with either a producer who has a day table on an ad hoc basis who would be similar to a farmer's market vendor, and day tables will be part of the public markets program, or a permanent merchant who you know, you trust, and who you will be able to get valuable information about the food you're purchasing. It might be that the producer is there on some days, that you would meet them. It might be in the case of the Astoria Fishermen's Co-op, for instance, that's very interested in aggregating their efforts so that they could have their boats selling fish to other than the canneries. They would rotate sort of the responsibility for running the retail end of their enterprise. So there are a number of tools that we have. I would talk about it more in terms of authenticity, though, and that's a hallmark of what we want to see.
Eva, from the Portland Farmers Market perspective, I think that this gets back to the food safety issue and that whole concept of certification. Most of the general public, or I should say a proportion of the general public, is on board with that because they feel their food is safe when it's certified. The Portland Farmers Market has always been a little bit more down and dirty as far as our outlook on that, and we feel that if you are a customer and you are able to see the farmer, if you're invited out to the farm, if you can talk to the person producing your food, then what more assurance could you have that that food is actually being safe? It's in your best interest to provide excellent food, or else you go out of business. So that's what we've relied on in the past, but it's an important question because it's becoming more and more of an issue, as you know.